Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. My name is Fergus. I am your host. You're watching an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Today, old man Trevor and myself are joined by Big Steve. We're going to rename him. And from the Gooner podcast, we've got the main man himself, Owen. We will look at the Palace game. We'll look ahead to the Villa game. We'll have the Gooner debate, and we'll talk about what is going to be, I expect, a very, very, very wonky Friday upcoming. How are we doing? Steve, good to see you. It was absolutely brilliant to see you up at the stadium on Monday night. I think you put a post on Facebook, which was an excellent day, and you put some great photos up and everything else. A shame about the result, which we'll go into. But you had a good time,
mate. Brilliant time. I stayed up at the old Highbury with old Mike Feinberg, who's over from the States, also on the Gooners podcast. So you know, we had a good laugh in the ground, sort of in the middle on the pitch. Then had a walk around in the morning. Popped over to the Armoury, give Cronky some more of my hard-earned cash. You know, stir a few comments. Went to the Armoury.
So was the fee for you to stay at Mike's at the North Bank, was that to appear tonight? Was that it? So you had to stand in for him?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know.
Well, Steve, I think you should have done it. You should have done a pre-op, because then it would look more like the Feinberg we know. Anyway, Owen, how are you doing, Owen?
Your words, not mine. I'm better after that. No, look, I'm good. I'm getting ready for my big voyage over to London for the first time in almost 2 years. So I'm looking forward to that. I've just been to the barber, as you can see, and he gave me a good, what he likes to call a de-tramping. Because he says that if every customer of his was like me, that he would never make a living, because they only show up at once every 6 months, and it's like one of those, you know, when the poser dudes walk around London and pick up a homeless guy and leave him into a barber and get him all spruced up. Well, that's what he says I'm like. So,
did you pick up one of his business cards at all? Because Trev could do one of those.
No. Hey, Trev, he's firing the shots, bro, not me this time. No, but look,
I'm going to be in deep trouble. I'm going to be in deep trouble on Friday, I tell you that. Listen, you're in training as well for Friday, because you've got a little and everything else, and you haven't been drinking for a little while, and
no.
You're out with how many of us is it? There's got to be about 30 or 40 of us, isn't there?
There's going to be a mountain of us. And actually, just if you bear with me 1 second, I'll show you. This is my collection that I've been building up over the past while. And there's literally about 25, 30 more bottles over there. So there has been a decent effort to build up the tolerance. I became a dad for the first time almost 2 years ago. So my drinking days have been sort of very limited over this past while. And I'm a bit wiser than I used to be, and now I understand the tolerance that I will have to build up to keep up with such a mammoth drinker as Mike Feinberg. So I'm just getting the preparation, and it's like Mo Farah wouldn't go to run a marathon, would never going for a jog, would he?
Well, I don't know, maybe. But listen, my youngest is 28, so my abstinence days are gone. Trev, you're in the same position as myself. Clearly, by seeing you on Monday night, you know, you let your guard down a little bit. You know, you made a schoolboy error. I met your beautiful daughter, and she was really nice. I don't know how. Obviously takes after her mum. She looked pretty. She looked pretty. She was polite. She was nice. And you left an trusting lady with your phone, and you know you left it unlocked as well. N17 born and bred. You got frapped by your daughter.
It wasn't by my daughter though, was it, Fergus? It was you, wasn't it? You were the ringleader of that. Anyway,
nothing to do with me.
Nothing to do with that. To be honest, as you all know, I was actually born in N15, which is Tottenham, but I don't like to tell that. I've told it to everybody now. So it was, mate. I'm looking forward to Friday. I'm going to have me 2 pints on Friday. Can't wait. Had a great night on Monday with my daughter. She's not been We worked it out. 21 years since my daughter last come to watch the Arsenal with me. And we sat in the East Stand lower at the Old Girl. So we walked round there and she had a look at where the last time she watched us in the old East Stand. And then we had a good night. We had a few beers and I must compliment the supporters club. The supporters club does a decent pint of Guinness, you know, and you get it in a glass in there as well. So it's worth the pound to get in there. So, yeah, it was a good night. I enjoyed it. She gnaws me off a little bit, but then that's what daughters are meant to do, aren't they? All in all, I didn't care about the result too much at the end of the night. I had a very enjoyable evening.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable as always. The atmosphere in the stadium this season was really, really good. Gooner Ross, who's in the chat, was in full voice, and my eardrum has paid the price.
He was loud at the tolly, I tell you that.
He won't remember, will he?
He was loud everywhere.
No. He was.
No. I spoke with him yesterday. I jumped on to Lee Judge's TV with Dan and Lee. They asked me to jump in last minute, and Gooner Ross
you were my substitute. I was asked in the morning, but I was still with Mike. I didn't get back to Margate until 7ish.
No,
but...
I was asked before that, and I said, "Can you ask Steve first?" And he said, "Look, Steve has turned me down," so I jumped in just because you couldn't do it. That was it. Believe it, you believe anything. Yeah, I said to him, and I was surprised he had a voice. He was in full voice. All the fans were in full voice before the game started. Even throughout the game, although it was slightly more subdued being a Monday night, and the game was a little bit weird with the Vieria sort of thing at the beginning, and then the performance was, which we'll go into, was up and down. But overall, I still think if that's the worst night we've had so far at the Emirates since we come back from lockdown, it wasn't a bad night, was it, Trev?
Yeah, it was awful. Fergus, it was awful. The fans just, it was, there was no life there at all, hardly. We were all right till we scored the goal because we played all right. And then after the goal, we turned off, didn't we? And it seemed that turned the fans off as well. And it was quiet, Fergus. It was, and they keep singing about Tottenham this, Tottenham that, Tottenham this, Tottenham that. Knock it on the head, boys. You know, when we played Tottenham, let's sing about them a bit. Once in a blue moon, let's sing about Tottenham. But not. I was on the concourse from about 20 to 7 till 8 o'clock, and all I heard was, "What do you think of Tottenham?" That's all I heard. I turned around to one bloke and I actually said to him, "Mate, we're playing Crystal Palace. You know, stop it. Knock it on the head. People are laughing at you." So it was. I see you're a bit further around than me, aren't you, Fergus? So I thought it was very quiet around where I was. I didn't think there was much life in the crowd at all, which was very disappointing because I think that was the kind of game where they needed lifting, didn't they? They badly needed lifting. They needed the fans behind them because we weren't having anything to do with the game, really. So, yeah, I disagree with you, mate. But then we're in different blocks, aren't we? So you never know.
Yeah, I just thought generally it was okay. I to be honest, I drove down, so I wasn't in match day mode Monday night as well. It's just weird. Listen, the lineups. Owen, if we look at the lineups first of all, Palace were without their first, probably the most two dangerous players. Zaha didn't play. What did you make of the Palace lineup? And did you look and go, "Ooh, hang on, I think we can do this"? And well, I expected we were going to do it anyway. But looking at the lineup, did you think definitely this is a shoe-in?
At first impressions, yes, because you look there and with Eze being absent as well, he's another danger man for Palace, and he obviously wasn't available for selection, and obviously Wilf Zaha being their talisman wasn't available for selection. But look, something I think we have sort of struggled with is the physical forwards. So although Christian Benteke's reputation has slipped him by in this past number of years, he's still the profile of striker that has caused us a bit of difficulty. If you look back to the Burnley game, I think that there was some difficulty caused by the physicality in that game. And then, of course, probably the most famous one this season was Romelu Lukaku again with Chelsea. And the problem is that Wilfried Zaha wasn't replaced by a like for like. He was replaced by Edouard and Ayew. So they were essentially playing with three people who could play as strikers, three people who could have the ball pumped into them comfortably and take it down under control. And also, I think that the inclusion of that caused us a lot of problems. And I'm sure we'll dive into more details later about this, but with Tomiyasu, because with Edouard not being a winger, his natural instinct was to drift inside, which causes a difficulty for your fullback at the best of times, because he doesn't know whether he should be staying wide or whether he should be tracking that man in. So I think we were dragged around the place a lot by that. I think as well, I think we took for granted how much of a tough battle that would be. James McArthur, we can talk about him later as well, but his physicality, Conor Gallagher's physicality as well, and his ability to break the lines with his passing. So I think when you looked at the Crystal Palace lineup initially, you could assume it to be weak, but when you actually deep dive into what that team was bringing, and I don't think they were fantastic by any means, but I think that they were far from their weakest. I think that anybody to look at that Crystal Palace team and think that they were going to be a pushover was proven to be mistaken.
Steve, what did you make of the lineup and some of the comments there that Owen said? Tomiyasu struggled against Edouard being in there. Personally, I thought Tomiyasu had a really good game.
That's what I was thinking.
I'll talk to Trevor about the Arsenal lineup. But go into and let us know what you thought about that Palace lineup.
Yeah, I think Owen made a good point just at the end. People would have looked at that and thought on paper maybe it's a weakened side, but I think you take into account the inclusion of both Benteke and Edouard. Ayew, I didn't think had a great game. He didn't do much. He wasn't on the ball a lot, I didn't think. But Edouard, he's got the pace, he's got the physicality, so he is cutting inside. But then that doubles up. Both our centre backs are watching what Benteke is doing. Benteke is very physical. I think we dealt with him for the most part quite well. Obviously, the goal he scored, was unfortunate, but I don't think that was a goal where he bullied us, and I don't think the Edouard one was like that either.
Into the gameplay itself afterwards, but just more or less, what was your thoughts? And did you think like what me and Trevor to a certain degree is, which we looked at lineups and we thought, oh, here we go, this is good.
Yeah, that was it. I don't think it would. I don't think it would have been a pushover game. We were saying beforehand, that without Zaha, obviously, I asked whether Eze was still fit or on his way back or not yet. But no, I thought on paper we should have beaten them. I don't think they had their strongest players. It did pose a different threat, but nothing too much.
Trev, we dropped Lokonga following on from what we discussed with Lee and Dan on the preview show, and we put Odegaard and Smith Rowe in alongside Partey, and Pepe started. How did you feel going into the game about the lineup, and did you have good hope that we'd do them?
Yeah, of course. Like the lads have just said, Fergus, I thought that we put out our strongest possible lineup. I wouldn't say that he dropped Lokonga. I think what he did was he played a team that was suitable for a game at home against Crystal Palace. He tried to go a bit more expansive. He played more. He's more inventive midfielders, supposedly, and he played his best side. And I thought, like Owen said, maybe we were lulled into a false sense of security, because I thought that we'd roll Palace over when I saw that their two best players were missing. But that was far from the case, wasn't it? Far from the case. And Terry Greenwood, as much as I agreeing with Terry, my good mate, he actually put on there that he thought Palace looked a better side on the night without Zaha. And that is actually a point to consider. I'm not going to talk about Crystal Palace because we're an Arsenal podcast, but they certainly didn't look like they missed him that much, did they? They were moving the ball around really well. And yeah, if we're honest, they were fully deserving of taking a 2-1 lead, weren't they? We went to sleep after the goal. I think that
before that 2-1 lead, Trev, we came out of the traps really, really strong. And, the first goal came from one of Pepe's few completed crosses, and it was a good shot, a fantastic save by the Palace keeper. And in fairness to Aubameyang, who we've criticised left, right and centre in the past, made an excellent contact with the ball and scored an excellent goal. And it did look like, here we go. And I think it might be Terry as well in the comments said, that's when the crowd went flat because we thought it's a foregone conclusion. It's just going to be one of those nights that we win 3 or 4.
Well, I was waiting for the floodgates to open, Fergus. I've got to admit, I thought we were gonna win comfortably. I really did, and so Terry's right, and the crowd did go flat after that. It's just while we're talking about Aubameyang, right? And I've got to be careful. I don't want people to think I'm picking on the lad here. But as the game got tighter later on, I really didn't like him dropping deep and moving out wide. I said it the other night on the podcast. I really thought we needed at that point a big focus in the box that was going to help us out holding the ball up and turn it around. See, but having said that, that might be how Arteta wants him to play. Arteta might be saying to him, you drop deep and you work hard and you cover off. But doing that leaves you with no one up front to hold the ball up. So feel a bit for Aubameyang, but I'm not shy of saying that I still think he's our weak spot in the side. And I think that as the game moved on, if we'd have had a big lad in the box, that might have just turned it around a little bit, to be honest. But
especially against opposition that they've got like a big back four and centre forwards and more physical sides. I don't think we're as bullied by a physical side as much as we have been in the past. I think we saw it against Burnley, a bit against Brighton, and maybe less so, but a bit against Palace last night. That we don't seem to get as bullied as much before as we did before. Go on.
Not at all, mate. I don't think we get bullied at all.
I think we did a few years back. We would get bullied.
Oh man, exactly. How many times over the last few years did you see us give goals away in the last few minutes because teams come at us hard and we didn't have the bottle, we didn't have the size to defend set pieces? Yeah, but I don't think we're bullied now, mate. I think that we've still got players that are learning. I was really concerned at the way we dropped off after we scored against Palace, because I thought we were better than that now. I really thought that we could push on and we were better than that, but we didn't really do anything, did we? And that is worrying. And if we play, I know we're going to move on to it, so I'll shut up after this, but if we play like that on Friday, I'll tell you for now, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble.
No, I totally agree, and we will cover the Villa game. Owen, before we go into the Saka foul and stuff and leading, because there wasn't very much else that happened in the first half, just that early 10-15 minutes of pressing and so on. Pepe, while he shows moments of, I don't want to use the word brilliance, but little sparkles when he does that shot that got prompted that great save, and he was involved for the equaliser goal as well. He's just a frustrating player. Personally, I don't like him at all, and that's my cards on the table. But he's just a frustrating player. C. Osborne puts in the chat, can we discuss Pepe? Really frustrating. I felt his movement held us up going forward. He kept on coming inside instead of linking up with Tomiyasu. And I was also a bit annoyed that we played him on that side rather than playing Saka alongside Tomiyasu. I'll leave it open to you to take it forward from there on that point.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm trying to think of a more frustrating player that we have ever had at Arsenal. And that's not to say that the guy doesn't have some sense of quality. But what I don't like about Nicola Pepe is the fact that he's sort of marketed as this trickster, this sleek dribbler that has the ability to strike fear in the defenders and beat them. And he's anything but that for me, because even when he's stuck in one-on-one positions, if the ball is stopped at his feet, he has absolutely no ability to beat a player from a stop. The ball seemingly has to be played in behind them, which for the Premier League just isn't what is needed to be a modern winger in this league. I think that, and we can touch on him as well later, but I think Gabriel Martinelli posed more of a threat and frightened the Crystal Palace defenders within his 10 minutes than Nicola Pepe did in the entire 90. And one of the most frustrating things for me, and I'm not, again, stop me if I'm jumping on to something you have for later, but when Alexander Lacazette come on, pumping the crowd up, that's when you could hear the crowd starting to go then. And then Nicola Pepe couldn't even deliver a corner. Sunday league players that I play with can deliver a corner. I don't understand why we see so many balls hit the first man, and it's just criminal. And look, I think there's something that always happens that I used to not like very much when discussing Nicola Pepe, and that was when the price tag was dragged into it. But
it's irrelevant.
Nicola Pepe has always been, his name isn't Nicola Pepe, it's £72 million Nicola Pepe. By the way, people go on. But to be honest, you have to take it. You have to consider it when you're talking about context. And for me, a player of that value has to deliver more than one moment every few games. If I look at, as you mentioned there, the fact that he had to be shoehorned into the side, and Bukayo Saka shifted over to the left. I think that Kieran Tierney suffered because of that move, because he links up with a right-footed player on the left really well, and that's where we get the most in attacking sense out of Kieran Tierney. But to be honest with you, to jump back to the whole system, Trev said there that he thought that was our best lineup. I would disagree with that. I think that system that people talk about, this 4-3-3 with the single 6 and 2 8s and Martin Odegaard and Emile Smith-Rowe, that's fine to play that if you're Liverpool. That's fine to play that if you're Man City or Chelsea, when you can dominate a game. But the truth is, the individuals that we have within our squad at the minute, whilst have vastly improved our squad from last season and the season before, we're still not a good enough side to play that. We need stability. We need structure. And the truth is, I think that we needed 2 double pivots. And although Lokonga didn't shine out of his skin when he came on, I think that we missed a trick in terms of structure with having those 2 centre midfielders. But, and I'll leave this here as my last point, Nicola Pepe, yes, had a poor game. And I think that defensively we were all right apart from those 2 individual mistakes. I thought Ben White was quite a bright shining light throughout that performance. But what I will say is this, is that people say they want to play with Emile Smith-Rowe, Martin Odegaard on the same pitch, or Saka and Pepe on the same pitch, or Aubameyang or whoever. But the truth is, you could fire on as many attackers as you want. The truth is, our problem isn't individuals or squad selection choices. It's tactical. We're so rigid when we're moving. I was watching us in the last 20 minutes and I thought we were never going to get a goal because there was no off-the-ball movement whatsoever. It was like watching a game of snooker. It was that static. It was wild. And that's something that I'm not seeing improvement from. And that's where my concern lies, is that we're not seeing this improve. And it's been our main issue for the past season and a half.
Fergus, just wait, before we move on from that point, let me just ask going. So, do you know, I saw that. I see that, Owen. I see that. What you're talking about, you're exactly right. So, is that Arteta's fault?
Yes. I would say so. And I'm not sure why, because look, this is something that people used, and I did myself. I said that I would wait till Christmas now after the North London Derby performance, and I'm still willing to do that. So I am. But I thought that was the turning point. But in fact, I think that could be another bow in the feather that finally shoots Mikel Arteta down, because what that performance showed us is what these group of players are capable of. That's what we should expect from this group of players. The triangle patterns, the movement. I don't care what team it is against or how good that team is or how well they're done in the night. Those patterns of play, we just don't see them on a weekly basis. And my question now is, well, if we've seen it then, why aren't we seeing it now? You know, and these aren't difficult things. They're simple things that you're taught as a youngster in football. Don't appreciate your pass, hit the ball and move into space. Yet we don't see it from any of these players. And I struggle to believe that so many of our players are on a downward spiral at Arsenal since the arrival of Mikel Arteta, without that being something to do with his management.
Before we move on, these guys are hilarious in the chat. Mass Gooner. Owen sounds more Irish when he's on with Fergus. Gooner Ross is saying he doesn't understand what he's saying. There's other guys talking about they got headphones on to get translate and using Google Translate. Yeah, very funny, lads. Very funny. Yeah, the Irish rule the world, by the way. If you like Guinness, especially. And Trev, you do like Guinness. Steve, I was just about to come to you on more or less following on from that. Like, would you have started then Lokonga Partey?
No.
Is that double pivot that Owen talked about? Is that probably why Partey didn't shine? When you look at that player and in that particular game rather than overall for now.
See, no, I thought it looked like we were playing more of like a 4-2-3-1 with Odegaard so deep. And when I saw the lineup and I figured that's how we'd be going, I was pleased with that rather than having Lokonga, just because the way that Ødegaard presses in the middle, even though he's not, defensively absolutely absolutely sound. Kai's comment then, I'll come to that if you bring it up. But defensively, he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest in midfield, but he presses hard and he puts people under pressure, which is when players like Ben White, when he comes forward and Partey, tend to mop up the ball or put the players under even more pressure because Ødegaard's already chasing them down. So I thought him in the middle with Partey was going to work. He moves the ball through the lines slightly quicker. As it happens on Monday, he didn't do it as much. So I was pleased with how we set up, and what was frustrating in the second half.
The question, Steve, is more: did the inclusion of having Partey in ESR rather than saying maybe Lokonga pairing alongside as two defensive midfielders, did that harm Partey's game? That's it, rather than the other players at this moment.
No, I don't think. I just think it was the fact that as soon as we got that goal, everybody came deep. Everybody was, we were allowing Palace to come onto us, and I didn't think, I didn't think Partey had the worst game. I like the fact that he was, still trying, and getting closer with his shots.
Assist.
Yeah, I didn't think Partey was that bad. It was just that the whole team after the first goal just sat back, was slow. We talk about Granit Xhaka and his sideways passing. Every pass in that sort of before the last 10 minutes, even quite a lot in the last 10 minutes, was sideways. We're passing it back to the keeper. I don't know what was going on, and it doesn't matter what formation we have. At the end we had four attackers on. We had Pepe, Martinelli, Lacazette, and Aubameyang all trying to get forward, and no one was finding them because we was going back to the fullbacks, sideways across the pitch. No one was trying to penetrate a ball through, and poor.
Trev, looking forward into the game, then just before half time, there was a foul. I haven't seen the replay of the foul yet. I've been told by several people it's been taken down off loads of YouTube, Twitter channels because of content stuff. But Trev, the Saka foul, as you saw it in the stadium, and I know you subsequently watched it on Sky afterwards, as you saw it in the stadium, did you see it as a malicious tackle? Did you see it as just a coming together? Did you think it was a red card? And let's not even go into Mike Dean because he had an awful game.
Yeah. It looked a bad tackle from where I was because we're down that end, aren't we? We're behind that goal.
Yep.
And it looked a bad tackle. I couldn't judge whether it was a red or a yellow, Fergus. We can't do that in the heat at the moment. But it looked a bad tackle. And afterwards, when I saw it on the telly, I thought to myself, yeah, that should have been a red. And there's two reasons I can't work out in my head why it wasn't a red. Firstly, Mike Dean, you look at it. Mike Dean's in a great position to see that. He's no more than about 4 or 5 yards away, and he's right on it, And secondly, what on earth? What on earth is VAR there for? He should have been buzzing Mike Dean and saying you need to seriously come and have a look at this. Because if you look at the player that kicked Saka, he's not looking at all. His eyes drop before the ball gets there, and he knows where his boots land, and he knows that Saka's leg is in the way, and he knows what he's doing. And he's injured the lad, and it was wrong, and he should have gone. But we can't use that as an excuse, Fergus. We can't use that as an excuse. I've got this thing going around my head, mate. Right, that all these lads. We're talking sense on here tonight, right? Everyone's saying about the sideways passing, the backwards passing, the lack of penetration. I've said about missing the forward being in the box to ease a bit of pressure off. We're saying all these things, right? But we all know that team that was on the pitch on Monday night,
still good enough.
Those 11 players can play better, a lot better. We know that. We've seen them do it. We've seen them play the socks off sides far better than Crystal Palace. So we're at a stage now where we have to ask ourselves why. Why do they drop off like that? And the reason I mentioned Arteta earlier is because Arteta, much as Owen said, Arteta's still got time for me. I think that Arteta is probably one transfer window behind where we wanted him to be. I wanted him to be ready and flying now, but I think he needs another player in January. But if the players are capable of doing better, and we all know that, they've played better, we've watched them play better, then you have to ask them why they're not doing it every week. And then, I'm not going to name any more names, but you all know what I'm insinuating. But as I said, I'm not calling Arteta out. He needs a bit more time, but it is infuriating. They are so much better players than we're seeing.
Can I jump up back onto something I was annoyed just about the Bukayo Saka incident with James McArthur, which obviously I watched it on TV and it was I think somebody said it in the chat, it was assault. I've done Muay Thai for a long time, not recently as you see by the weight, but that's a kick that most kickboxers would be chuffed with planting. It was a full volley to the backs of the legs, and thank God it wasn't in a different position or his leg wasn't planted or something, because it was a potential leg breaker. That's how serious that was. But I say this with the risk of sounding like the classic wannabe Sunday League head that thinks that the old game's gone and you should be able to headbutt people in the chin without getting sent off, and that's not what I'm insinuating whatsoever. But what I was slightly disappointed by was that if I was on that team and that happened to me or that happened to one of my friends, I would love to see my teammates some form of retribution, some form of retaliation for something like that. Put a challenge in on them, get dirty, get physical. Don't just turn into gentlemen, pat him on the back and say, "Oh, it's grand, mate. You've just injured arguably our best, most influential player." And that's something that I still think there's a problem with at Arsenal, is that people say that that's unsportsmanlike and stuff, but I'm sorry. People look back at some of the most fond memories, the Battle of Old Trafford with Martin Keown and Ruud van Nistelrooy. People look back at that fondly, all right? And regardless of whether people think it was scummy or this or that, they did it as a team, and all they were doing was defending one of their own players. And for me, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see James McArthur flipping across the Emirates pitch, head over heels after Gabriel went in and slide tackled him. And that's something we can improve on, I think.
I tell you what, we had it recently, didn't we, with a floppy-haired Frenchman, and people didn't like it.
Listen, people didn't like Guendouzi for different reasons. It wasn't necessarily for his tenacity and stuff getting involved in that way. Listen, we move on with the game itself, though. Saka was substituted for Lokonga in the second half. Second half is where Palace basically. We faded and Palace improved. Benteke continued his good record in games against Arsenal, and he scored the equaliser. Partey, the guy you said had a good game, Steve. Sorry, I'm not digging you out, but I thought he had a dog.
No, I didn't think he had a bad game. I didn't think he had a bad game.
I definitely disagree. He was caught in possession by Jordan Ayew, and Benteke drilled a great shot into the bottom corner. Trev, you come into me on that play, and then I give Steve the right of reply.
I didn't think the Partey was that bad. I didn't think he knocked our socks off. I didn't think he was that bad, Thomas Partey. No. I thought Arnie's made a good point there in the chat, in that we scored a goal, then we try to defend a 1-0 lead, right? Not that one. We try to defend a 1-0 lead, and he has made a point. I suppose you can look at it like that. But we took a 1-0 lead in the 8th minute, didn't we? In the 8th minute, you don't defend 1-0 leads from the 8th minute. You think we're in a game here. Old Hills is going to be drawing his 4-0 bet tonight, and we didn't. And as for the reaction of the players, that might well be a Mike Dean thing, Owen, because Mike Dean would have been waiting for a reaction. You know what he's like? He loves to be the centre of attention. Mike Dean would have been waiting for a reaction, and they'd have gone. They'd have gone just like that, because that bloke don't care. It's all about him, Don't forget he cheered a goal by Tottenham against us once. So, it's the thing that annoys me is that when that ball's coming down, is it MacArthur? Is it MacArthur that kicks him? Yeah. MacArthur knows. He knows. He's a professional footballer. He knows that Saka is between his foot and the ball. He knows he's there. He can see the ball dropping. He's watching it. And he knows Saka's in front of him. And he knows there's absolutely no way he can kick that ball. No way. There's only one place his foot's going to land. And he made sure it landed as hard as he possibly could. Yeah, out of all of it. I didn't think Partey was that bad, Fergus. I didn't think he was brilliant, but I didn't think he embarrassed himself.
I can't say he embarrassed himself, but I just think you talk about price tags and stuff, but for the fanfare he came with, and not mention the price tag, but the fanfare he came with, I think he's failed to impress so far. Steve, I'll give you the right to reply because, as I said, I wasn't digging you out. I was just saying I thought he had a very poor game.
No, like I alluded to earlier on. I think after the goal, I think our whole team was poor, and because we were so far back, it didn't give him any time on the ball. There were no avenues for him or Ødegaard to pass into. Obviously, Ødegaard's going to move forward and be a little bit more agile around the pitch. Partey doesn't do that as much, but he did still try and get forward. He did still try and move the ball and get in. Yeah, okay, he got caught for the goal. So did Lokonga. It just wasn't. I mean, no, I don't think anyone really had an outstanding game. I think our best player was probably Aaron Ramsdale again. Gabriel, I thought was probably up there as well. I know he let in 2 goals, but he was everywhere at the back, it seemed. No, I get where you're coming from, but I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that Partey wasn't that bad. But yeah.
Oh, anyway,
Ødegaard off.
Good night, anyway, Stevie. Right?
It was a good night.
It was a good
despite
night.
the result.
It was a good night.
And the performance.
I don't care about the football. It was a good night. We had a few beers. We had a laugh. We had a joke. 90 minutes of football came along, and then we carried on having a laugh afterwards.
Did you celebrate the goal though? Did you celebrate the equalising goal?
Well, don't start that. That's another subject.
No, there's a lot of it, isn't there? There's a lot of it.
We haven't even got there yet, Steve.
All right. I haven't seen the itinerary.
Ødegaard for Lacazette. Owen, he came and Lacazette came close when he first came on. You alluded to earlier on the way he went up to the North Bank. He screamed at us and he got us all going. And he made such a huge difference just to the feel and everything else. That's 67 minutes in. And I've said it in some of the WhatsApp groups I'm on. I think the substitution for the Saka injury will have influenced Arteta's substitution plans, but I did think that overall he made some of them late, especially the Martinelli one, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But the Lacazette impact was just unreal, and I think if he had got that goal that he nearly made within 2 or 3 seconds into the game, I think we'd have a completely different outcome to this whole game and our discussion today. Over to you.
Yeah, no, look, it's pretty frustrating because I think for once, in comparison to the rest of the team, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang really was setting the tempo quite early on in the game. But the problem is, I think, with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is that he's a very single-minded striker in the fact that you don't really often, maybe apart from Spurs, see him linking play up and setting up plays with other players. And whilst Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang undoubtedly has a better goal output than Alexander Lacazette in terms of up against each other, I'm not sure whether that outweighs what Alexander Lacazette can bring to the side in terms of linking up with Bukayo Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, Martin Ødegaard, Nicola Pepe, and the statistical output that obviously goes up when he's on the pitch with them players. You know, like, I have absolutely no doubt that, and I could be wrong, but you could go and check out the stats for Emile Smith-Rowe, Bukayo Saka, Martin Ødegaard, and Pepe, and compare it with when Lacazette's on the pitch and not in the pitch, and I'm sure there's a massive drop-off when he's not there. Now, whether that's a stylistic combination with those players that is good, or whether it's just that he instills a sense of confidence in those players that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang doesn't, and we hear the whispers coming from the dressing room that Lacazette is absolutely brilliant with those younger players, and he really does take it upon himself to mentor those guys. But, and here's what I mean by this is conflicting. The problem is now is that I'm sure we'll touch on possible lineups for the Villa game and stuff. I think that he could put himself in contention, especially with what I would say is the absence of Saka for the Aston Villa game. But this is a player coming to the end of the contract at the club, and the player really seemingly don't have much of an interest of extending that stay at Arsenal Football Club. And we'll look back, you sort of know what you're going to get with Alexander Lacazette. And it's simply probably not good enough. It's not up to the level that we want. And should we be investing that time in somebody like a Flo Balogun or a Gabriel Martinelli or a Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who has a much longer lucrative contract with the club? And that's my only problem, is do we fall back in on dependence to Alexander Lacazette that has let us down in years past, or do we start to offer out the opportunity to somebody else whose future is obviously going to be more prolonged at the club?
Excluding contracts and the money that Aubameyang's on, if it was equal 50-50 between the Lacazette and Aubameyang, which one would you keep?
At the minute, I would keep Alexander Lacazette. For statistical or for tactical reasons and financial reasons. I think that those wages are going to be an absolute burden on us. And I think that anybody that looks back, here's something that I compare to. Remember when Mesut Ozil re-signed? Everybody was, oh, thank God we got Mesut Ozil back. Thank God we're not losing both him and Alexis Sanchez. And it was very much the same thing when Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang signed the thing as they were putting out around that time. And for me, he isn't in the same ilk as Mesut Ozil. He doesn't conduct himself in that manner. He obviously still works hard, as we see at the start of that Crystal Palace game. But every player has a natural decline, and unfortunately, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang relies a lot on his instincts for finishing and his pace, and both of those things always start to decrease in and around that 31, 32 age. And maybe we're just starting to see those dip off on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
I think so. Trev, just trying to get to the end of this game because I want to go on to the Villa game as well. Palace stole the ball off Arsenal again. This time it was Conor Gallagher that dispossessed Lokonga and broke quickly. Edouard shot a goal on the underside of the bar. Ramsdale did his best. I thought Ramsdale kept us in the game quite a lot. I did notice that Gabriel was way up the pitch in that play, and Ben White was left type of midships and didn't know where to go or what to do at any one point. I don't think Ben White's at fault, but it did feel like, Jesus, he's been hung out to dry a little bit about. What did you think about that goal overall?
They broke well, Palace, for that goal, didn't they? They broke well. I thought Ramsdale should have saved it, by the way. Thought he was poor, Ramsdale. Thought he should have saved it. No, not really. I'm only joking, Fergus. I'm only joking. I thought he was battered for the goal. But, yeah, they broke well, Palace, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was a good goal scored by a side that were on top for most of the game. There's no more you can say about it than that.
Can I ask you this, Ross? Right, and this is something that I was screaming at the TV. Ross, I'm sorry, I'm looking in the chat and seeing Gooner Ross. No, look back at the Ryan Giggs goal in the FA Cup against Arsenal. And I was screaming at that time when Palace were on the break, take him down. Somebody take him down. And that move should have been ended way before he even got to Ben White. Ben White done everything right. He jockeyed him, tried to hold him up until somebody could arrive and give him a little bit of help. Yeah. And you boys could speak to this better, but in the stadium, I heard that the shot was actually a rocket. It was so quick that Aaron Ramsdale didn't really have much of a chance. But do you think that somebody should have maybe done what MacArthur done? And this is what I mean by we don't have that nasty streak in us. Put the boot in somebody before it gets to that stage.
Well, ideally they would, Owen, but they didn't, and it's a part of the weakness of our game, I suppose. I've not seen that part on the telly, so I can only remember it as it happened at the stadium, and I can just remember him running away from us, and the next thing I knew, it banged in the back of the net in the blink of an eye. So I can't really comment, but the idea of what you're saying, I mean, of course, someone should have. On reflection, someone should have got hold of him and dragged him down, and at that stage of the game, took a yellow for it, And we haven't
Trevor,
got
at that point. I think Gabriel was way up the pitch. Partey, I think he was still on the pitch at that point, but Partey was jogging back, and Lokonga was on his ass. So anybody who could have taken him out wasn't there to take him out, and I think that was the issue. Owen, that there wasn't anybody to take him out.
It was
go on.
It was after an attack, and it was one of the things I was saying earlier on about the slowness in midfield and the lack of sort of forward passing. The reason Gabriel was up, and he did it quite often in the last sort of 10-15 minutes, he was on the edge of their box trying to trying to call for a shot in for a crossover from Pepe's side. Obviously, Martinelli was trying and Tierney was not coming forward as much as he could have been, but it happened for quite a few times in the second half. Gabriel would sort of move the ball forward, got towards the end of the box, and he's around the box waiting for a cross to come in, and no one was crossing. And I think when Lokonga lost the ball, he was looking inside. As he's turned to look inside, he's lost the ball, and they've gone. And I think if we had a bit more tempo to our game, obviously Lokonga doesn't lose that ball, but also, the players that are bombing forward, because we're trying to get something and nothing's going to them. If the ball gets moved quicker, then obviously they don't break, and if some mutts, but I don't think Ben White could have done anything, and I don't think Aaron Ramsdale could have done either.
I'm impressed with White and Gabriel. But just before you move on, mate, Gooner Russ, right, might have just nailed it. We put out that comment he's got about the one about Alba and Laka, right? The one about Alba and Laka. Because it's a really interesting comment. Is it time that they both went and we started again up front? Is it time? I think Laka's never been prolific goal scorer. Is it time where we look at it and think, right, we'll mark this player down and this player down for January, and we have a complete channel?
I think it is time for us to get rid of both. But if we were to keep one and bring another one through, or two through, I'd keep Lacazette just for now, because I think you could put him on a year extension, give him a little bit of money, and he'd be all right. But the problem is
Alba won't go, will he, mate?
Aubameyang's not going to go because nobody's going to buy him for that money. He's got another year left in his contract after this year. He's just going to stay there and get the money. And look, when he comes good, he comes really good, but he's not coming good enough. Tierney came very close. I don't know what he didn't know whether to pass back or what to do. He looked a little, from where I was, and Trev, you're very close to me. He looked a bit like, oh Christ, what do I do? I've got to shoot, and he just took a shot, and he was so unlucky. We all jumped at that point, and we all thought it was across the line, and it bounced the wrong way across the line and bounced out of the net. Trev, did you think he looked a little bit like, oh shit, what do I do?
No, I've not got one single issue with Kieran Tierney. The only issue I've got is in defence of Kieran Tierney, in that I think maybe he's lost a bit of enthusiasm for bombing up and down the line and getting the crosses in, because we've got absolutely no one in there that's ever going to head the ball in the back of the net. And I say that in defence of Kieran Tierney. I think we've got a cracking player. I don't think he's got any weaker. I just think he plays the game differently. People were saying at half-time against Tottenham he stopped bombing forward as much as he did. Well, of course he did. We were winning by 3 clear goals, and he's not going to... Arteta would have said to him, just be careful with you moving forward, defend a 3-goal lead. So absolutely no problem at all with Tierney, Fergus, mate. None at all. I feel sorry for him. And that might be the reason why, as Steve just said, we're finding Gabriel getting forward a bit more, because he's going to be the one that heads the ball in the net if we do get a crossing, So
that's true. That is true.
Do you not think as well it's down to the fact that teams have figured out that it's very, very easy to nullify Arsenal's attacking threat? That it's simply that our tactic for the past season and a half has simply been get the ball to Tierney, spam crosses into the box, and let's hope we score. That's very, very easy. It's like going up against Man City, say, for example, and saying just nullify Kevin De Bruyne. That's their main outlet. That's the tempo setter. And for us, it's the left back. So it's very, very easy to limit. So easy to limit him. And unfortunately, I think that he's just fallen victim of the fact that, remember when Nicola Pepe first came, nobody knew how to defend against Nicola Pepe. And then finally everybody figured out, Jesus, this guy's terrible on his weak foot. Just show him onto his weak foot and he's going to do nothing. And now it's simply just forget about the winger, double up on Kieran Tierney, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, to be honest, I was going to cite Pepe on that one. Vieira will rule the...
Look, can I ask you a question while we're on fullbacks, mate? You never answer many questions on here. Tierney's our threat from the left. Do you think that Tomiyasu could develop into just as big a threat on the right? He's only played half a dozen games, so he's still developing. But I've got a feeling that Tomiyasu could be just as threatening on the right as Tierney. is on the left.
To be honest, from what I saw of Tomiyasu in the flesh last night, on Monday night, and over the last few games, some on TV and everything else, I've been so impressed with the player overall. He has got the pace. Defensively, he's really, really strong. But I have seen him put a couple of crosses in, and I think he looks like the player that can develop anything he wants to develop. He just looks like he's so focused on trying to do what he's doing. So yes, he could be that threat on that side as well. I think we've got a total gem in Tomiyasu. I know he came into some people were saying he didn't have a great game on Monday. From where I was standing and watching, I thought he had a fantastic game. Listen, a question to you guys. Vieira made a tactical decision by taking off Eduardo early, and with 8 minutes left, he put Tompkins on, went very defensively. Vieira can do nothing wrong in Palace's eyes, can do nothing wrong in Arsenal's eyes. If Arteta had done the same thing in the same position, he would have been absolutely slated. Discuss. Steve, come in. What do you think about Vieira's decision to go defensive when he's 2-1 up against Arsenal at that point?
I mean, it makes sense. I think, the way that we were playing, we weren't looking threatening going forward. Why not sit and, because we were sitting deep up until the 81st minute. We were. So why not just try and take it on the chin? Say, expect that Arsenal aren't going to come at us like maybe other teams will, because generally we don't. And save Edouard for, I don't know who they've got next, but save Edouard for the weekend. Ayu's gone off, Edouard's gone off. Benteke might not play the next game because the game might not suit Benteke. So I think it made sense. From a Palace standpoint.
Owen, again, I'm going to disagree with Steve. Christ, Steve, you're having a bad day in the office with me on this one. We brought on Lacazette, who had just changed the pace and tempo of the game. We were threatened, pushing forward. We had just missed a chance. Yes, they had got ahead and gone 2-1 up, but we were still pushing and going for it. Tierney had hit the underside of the bar, and he takes off his only threat going forward, really, to go defensive when, we were chucking everything forward. He could have nicked it on the break, in my view. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that in my honest opinion, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't think we ever looked like scoring, really. I thought that Crystal Palace had us pretty well contained, and I disagree with Steve in terms of that being the right substitution. I think that I seen Paddy Vieira checking his mobile phone right before he made that substitution, and I've got a suspicion that was coming from Arsene Wenger, because it seemed like it was straight out of the Arsene Wenger handbook to fire another defender on to try and hold out a lead. But to be honest with you, I think it shows the inexperience within Patrick Vieira's game as well, because if he had looked at Arsenal through the start of the season, he would have known that we've really struggled when being pressed really high, and I think that's where Crystal Palace found a lot of joy in this game, when they were pressing us and putting us under pressure all the time. I thought that Gallagher set that tempo absolutely brilliantly, and they were relentless, didn't give us an ounce of space to breathe. And I think that by sitting back and inviting on the pressure, you were letting Arsenal play their own game. And look, even though I say I didn't think we ever looked like scoring, if you pump enough balls into the box, eventually something's going to happen. Somebody's going to get lucky, and it just turned out that we did. But to be honest with you, Palace dropped points and we gained a point. That's the way I look at it. That they were the better side on the night. We were outplayed completely, and I would say that. And I don't know if this is maybe a little too harsh. I think that the improvements that Patrick Vieira has made in terms of what you expected Roy's Palace to play like and what they played like against us, I think that Patrick Vieira has made more of a difference in the short time that he's been with Palace than Mikel Arteta has done to Arsenal.
Yeah, I can't really argue much of that.
I'll disagree with Owen.
I just felt that if Arteta had made the same move and the same tactical substitution, as much as and I haven't really got into Martinelli that much. He looked begrudging to put Martinelli on and left it so late, and Martinelli was left isolated quite a lot by Lokonga and some of his other teammates in the game. I think if Arteta had done the same substitution and we dropped 2 points like that, I think Twitter would have blown up.
One thing I will ask, just to flip it. Obviously, last kick of the game, great finish by Lacazette. But people have said we were lucky to get a point there. It was a lucky goal, right? So had we not got that lucky goal, last kick of the game, would we be talking about Vieira taking off Edouard, going defensive, winning 2-1, holding out as a tactical masterclass, and everyone would be using that as a sword to slay Arteta with? So,
Steve,
fine
you're
margins.
Probably right. No,
Yeah,
you're
but that's the difference, is that then his plan would have worked, so it would have been proven right.
But it very much almost did.
Doesn't matter, Steve. If you jump out of an airplane and your parachute almost works, it's not a good thing.
yeah. But yeah,
and Steve, my point was more about if Arteta had done that, the world would have
he has done. He has done a lot.
Right,
and it's bitten us in the arse. So
okay, let's go on.
Wait a minute.
Go on.
You've not asked me why I disagreed with Owen. What's the matter with you, Fergus? You're meant to be the honourable leader here.
I was about to come.
You've not asked me why.
I was about to come to you and ask you about the 95th minute winner and Lacazette and see if you were there to celebrate it.
Right, listen. Can you put up that comment from Jar Ryder there about the T-shirt?
That's quite, yeah.
Wait, I want to know why he was
Language.
disagreeing with me. This is good.
Right. Listen, Jar Ryder, Riders of the Night, right? He's a group that all the proper Arsenal lads go to see and we love. They're the boys that sing, Paddy Got Up and he sung it again. They're a great group. If you hear they're playing around Arsenal at all, before or after a game, go and see them. You'll have a laugh, right? You go and see them. They're proper lads, right? Proper lads. But Owen, listen, right? Going back to the press, right? It was really interesting what you said, because I honestly thought that this season with White and Gabriel, and then with Ramsdale behind him, and I think Reed's a game better than Leno, I thought that we've played against the press better than we have for a long time. I thought that Gabriel and White have got that little bit higher skill level on the floor. And then when the press does come too hard, Ramsdale's been clearing it, right? But the point I'm making now is that Ramsdale does great there, and he moves the ball up the field when he detects the pressure. But this is where we lack a big body up the field, because I was watching it the other night. Every time Ramsdale woofed it, it came back. It came back because we didn't have. And once again, I'm not having to go at Aubameyang here, because Aubameyang's not this type of player. I'm talking about type of player rather than name of player, right? We've not got that type of player up there that when Ramsdale does use his sense, holds the ball up and gives our three just behind them the extra few seconds to catch up with the game, So there's loads to talk about, and I don't know how we put it right, but I honestly do think we've dealt with the press better this season than we have in seasons previously. We don't seem to be that bad against it. That's for me.
As we talked about earlier, a scrappy but maybe ill-deserved but lucky, and we'll take it, goal by Lacazette. 95 minutes gone. A lot of the fans had left. I had wandered towards the back because I had my grandson with me, and he was had to be home for school, so we watched it just on the screens behind, and he celebrated wildly. Trev, did you celebrate the goal?
Do you know what, Fergus? I've got to hold my hands up, because I did leave 5 minutes before the end, and I never do as a rule, but I had my daughter with me, and I had to get her home. I promised her we would be on the 10:24 from Finsbury Park, because then we didn't get home till turn 1 in the morning, and if we miss a 10:24, it's too late for us. So part of her coming was that I'd got her out the ground, so I But let me tell you, if I'd have been in there,
you text me about 1:30 in the morning saying I'm home. So that's why people do leave, and that was the reason I asked. That was all.
But I wouldn't normally leave, Fergus. I wouldn't normally leave.
It
only because I had my daughter with me, as you said earlier. But as for not celebrating it, mate, I was halfway down Plimsoll Road, nearly at Finsbury Park Station, when I had it going, and I was dancing in the street. Of course, you celebrate a bloody goal. If you don't celebrate an Arsenal goal, you have to look at yourself seriously and say, am I a proper Arsenal fan? Mm-hmm. Do I support the Arsenal? An Arsenal goal in the last minute to get a draw is a goal to get a draw. And it's a goal that got us out of trouble. And it's a goal that lightened the load a bit. So, of course, you bloody celebrate it. You shout your head off. Ben Bennett, by the way, there, Fergus. What a man, Ben Bennett. He's writing a great piece in the latest issue of the Gooner, Ben. And I found out today that he's going to be writing regularly for the Gooner, Ben Bennett. And you won't find any bigger Arsenal fan than Ben Bennett to write the pieces for the Gooner. He's a top man, Ben Bennett.
So we move on to the Villa game. The only reason I brought up that was I saw loads on Twitter, on Facebook, people going, "Oh, there you go," and not just Arsenal groups and stuff going, "There you go, Highbury or the Emirates gets vacated again. These fans, this and that." But what people don't realise is our reach is that far that people are coming from all over the country, and you have got to get home. And London Transport and British Rail and etc. Don't take any of that into consideration. It doesn't happen in Germany. It doesn't happen in other countries around Europe where they actually plan things forward. Looking at the Villa game, Friday night expectations. Owen, it's 12th versus 13th, 12 points versus 11 points. Villa have lost one more game and drawn one less game than Arsenal. They've lost to Wolves from being 2-0 up to lose 3-1. They lost to Spurs 2-1. They've beaten Man United away, Everton at home, and drawn to Chelsea away. What are we expecting? This is, to be honest, with the two games this week, I didn't think this was got to be the easier of the two.
No, and it hasn't been in recent years. I think, especially over the last three seasons or so, every time we've met Aston Villa, it's always been a fiery occasion. It's always been pretty good. That's it. It was actually the last game that I was at, and funny, this is going to be the first game back since, which was the 3-2 comeback when Unai Emery was still manager. Ainsley Maitland-Niles getting sent off, and that was an absolutely cracking game. And I'm expecting more fireworks, a lot of attention. There always seems to be these narratives, whether it be Crystal Palace and Patrick Vieira's return, and of course it's going to be Emi Martinez's return to the Emirates with a crowd in it. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets. He's been very vocal in the media, coming out. He seems to never have Arsenal off the tip of his tongue when he sits in front of a camera. So it'll be interesting to see that. But look, they're a very good side under a very good manager. They're making a lot of smart moves in the transfer window. I think it's going to be funny as well, because I think there's a little more spite between Arsenal and Aston Villa. Essentially down to the fact that Emi Martinez has gone there, that Emi Buendia was beaten to his signature, was Aston Villa beat us to his signature. So they seemingly took one of our top targets near the start of the window, and then to put in a cheeky, very undervalued bid for Emile Smith-Rowe on a number of occasions as well. So I think that there's more tension now with Aston Villa than there's probably been in the last 30 years, I'd say. So it's going to be an interesting one. Look, and I don't like saying this, but I don't know how we're going to do. Of course I don't know. But we never know what Arsenal's going to turn up. We could obliterate them, slap them 4-5-0, or we could get absolutely hammered by them. The only thing that gives me a little more confidence is that Trev has mentioned them on a couple of occasions. I think that the centre-back pairing of Ben White and Gabriel makes us much, much more resilient at the back, especially Gabriel. I think he gets overlooked so much. He's a mammoth of a defender, brilliant physically, brilliant playing out from the back. And do you want to know what? I think that if there's anything that the Crystal Palace game showed us, and I know we touched on Thomas Partey as well, and I think that he's missing this, is that, and I'm not sure whether this says a lot about the player or a lot about our reliance on him, but we kind of miss Granit Xhaka in the centre of the park. I think that whilst he does have his flaws, he's got a lot of positives to his game too, and I think that shone through, because Thomas Partey has come from an Atletico side with Koke, with Cyril Niguez, with really established central midfielders. And I just don't think it's within his character to be that dominant in centre mid. I don't mean like physically dominant or his attributes in terms of moving about. He's very dominant in that sense. But in terms of being that general, the person in charge, that Patrick Vieira, I don't think he has it in him. And I think that we're really going to miss Granit Xhaka over the next few fixtures. So, look, difficult fixture at the best of times, but with the altitude,
it's been fantastic having you on here. But like loving Granit Xhaka is
look, and this is what I mean.
I get your point. I do get your point.
Like, is that alarming that we're relying so much on somebody like Granit Xhaka? Does that say a lot about the state of Arsenal Football Club at the minute, that somebody like him is so important to this side?
I understand where you come on the Xhaka thing, and I think he's got attributes of his game that we do miss in the midfield, but he's also got attributes of his game that we don't miss, which is the very negative backwards, sideways passing. Although the horseshoe did come into play against Palace again when we ran out of ideas and when they pressed us, but he's normally the instigator of that, and for that reason, plus others, and forget about the Palace game 3 years ago, which still sticks with me and sticks in my craw.
I'm getting some amount of shit in the chat for backing up Grant. I think, look, let me make this very clear. Granit Xhaka is an absolute yoke. He's terrible. I don't think he's a fantastic footballer, but in comparison to what we have, you know, like, you can't pick and choose when you're scraping the bar. You have to take what's there.
Look, listen, Owen is right in a way, Fergus, because let's be honest, the Granit Xhaka that played against Tottenham, we'd miss that every week. But unfortunately, the Granit Xhaka that played against Tottenham is probably about 5% of his total performances across the course of a year. And we've spoken about the problem against Palace being we had no penetration, we had no forward movement. If we got the old Xhaka there as well, then we are in trouble. You know, but in fairness to Owen, you've got to give credit where it's due. The Xhaka that played against Tottenham was outstanding. And you know me, Fergus, I don't like the man. I don't think he should be playing for our great football club. But, you know, but once again, there you go. It shows he's got a performance in him, you know. But, you know, we wouldn't want him in his negative mask, because we'd be in massive trouble.
Oh, and you're getting absolutely ruined here.
That's all right, man. It's all right.
Steve, do you want to pass it to the left? The guy who's having a bad day at the office now is Owen.
Yeah, he's saved me.
You're relieved.
He's my Lacazette. That's at the death, coming in clutch.
I'll tell you what. There's some great lines there. He's my Lacazette, and jumping out of a plane without a parachute. If you've got that, 2 great lines tonight. It's absolutely brilliant. Guys, go on. Steve, have your final word on this then, we'll close the show.
Yeah, my thing on Xhaka, I think, you know, look at how he performed before Tottenham. He was, you know, we're saying, why is he passing it sideways? Why? And there was a lot of that anyway. So would he have been the difference on Monday night? I don't know. I get where Owen's coming from. And I was saying this to Potsy. It was, you know, if he's in the side, yeah, we know what he adds, and sometimes we miss what he adds. But in a game like Monday night, where it's scrappy, where it's Mike Dean, he puts a slightly more aggressive tackle in, like the tenacity and the tenacious tackles that Owen was saying we were missing. That's a yellow, that's a red with fine margins, or it gives away a free kick. That Granit Xhaka costs us more than he gives us, and I think that's my final say.
Yeah, I agree. Right, Owen, briefly, prediction for Friday night score. I know it's impossible, but go for it.
My prediction is that I'm going to be extremely drunk and not remember any of the game.
I think that's times 3 at least. Steve, have you made your mind? Go on, score prediction first of all. Yeah, sorry.
I'm going to go a scrappy 2-1 win. I think that when we started out, Mikel Arteta always pulled something out of the bag, much like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So
not tonight. Not tonight. They're losing 2-0.
I know, but he'll beat Brentford or something, and then keep his job for another month. So no, 2-1 win, and I'll do Emile Smith-Rowe to score.
Fine. Steve, I don't know if you've managed to get work off and get up for the game.
No,
or not.
I'm not going to be up. I'm afraid. I'm aiming for Tuesday. I know a lot won't be there, but no, I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be 1-0 Arsenal.
Okay, and it's Trev time. Your score prediction and your 15-minute monologue. Go on.
I think that. You'd be gutted if I just didn't say anything now, wouldn't you? If I just turned off and went that bit.
No, I'd be pleased. I'd be pleased. It's a great film I want to watch.
Fergus, you're telling porkies. You're telling porkies. Right, listen, I think that the teams. I'm hoping that the team selection is Saka not going to be fit, is he?
I don't think he'll play.
So if Saka don't play, we bring Lokonga in, and then we stick with the rest of the team as it was. We don't change Alba, but we look at bringing on Laka much earlier into the game. And I don't think we can play that badly again with that team. I'm hoping so. I'm always wrong, I know, but I'm hoping we can't put that same team out again. If I was Arteta, I'd be saying to him now, that was rubbish on Monday. I'm putting my faith in you this Friday. Go out there, turn it on, and show us how you really can play. Because everyone in that 60,000 crowd knows you can play better. Go and prove it. And I think they will go out there and prove it first. And I think we're going to win 4-0. And I think Martinez is going to be gutted. He'll walk off with his tail between his legs. But as Gooner Russ said earlier, he'll probably get a round of applause because every goalkeeper that ever came to Highbury, whoever they were, when they came down to their goal, they got a round of applause. It didn't matter who it was, for what side. You know, the season after, Gary Sprake knocked. Who was it he knocked out now? I can't remember who he knocked out. Even the season after, Gary Sprake still got a round of applause when he came down and took his place between the sticks. So he'll be all right.
I expect he will. I expect he will get a warm welcome. He won't get his a Vieira-esque welcome, but I think he'll get a respectful Arsenal welcome, and deservedly so. You know, that's the way it should be. You at 4-0, Christ, I can't. I really struggle to. I'll go a scrappy 1-0. But
he's agreed with me.
Just twice in a night. But I do agree what you've all said, that it's going to be just a difficult game, and you can't really call it. It could be 4-0 Arsenal, it could be 4-0 Villa, who knows? It could be a 4-4. It's one of those. Oh, and tell people where they the official Shaka fan club. Besides on shakaofficial.com, where else can people catch you?
I don't give my address out on the internet.
Xhaka Hub.
No. We leave that to Gooner Ross on Lee Judge's fan cams to give Lee Judge's home address out.
No, you can find me on Twitter, just under there at Owen Young AFC, or on the Gooners podcast as well. Also, we're still pushing ahead towards the finishing line of our Gooners Free Cancer campaign. So head over to Gooners Free Cancer, where we're having a couple of raffles and stuff still, so you can check out the unbelievable prices we have there and make a donation.
While you talk about Gooners Free Cancer, I was hoping that Mike was going to be here as well, that we could talk to him and congratulate the Gooner podcast on their achievements. It's a fantastic achievement that one of our podcasts, our little podcast, big podcast, whatever, but podcast that we all know everybody, and up against the likes of Sky TV and some of the main sports publications, that Mike Feinberg, yourself, and the rest of the guys at the Gooner podcast and Gooner v Cancer got a recognition as a content award for a charitable
campaign.
What was the
charitable campaign?
Best charitable campaign award.
Yeah. So well done on behalf from Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Thank you very much for that.
No, pleasure, buddy. And as I say, it's all down to Mike, the work that man puts in behind the scenes. And as I said after, like, he may come across as a big ignorant idiot, but the truth is that he's one of the most genuine, caring people that you'll ever meet within this fan base, and he puts himself out there just for the benefit of others, and it's really good to see all that work finally being recognised, and him getting the the recognition that he deserves.
Well, I mean, he put me up Monday night. As Trev said, he had to leave early. I would have had to leave early.
You put what up Monday night?
He let me stay at his place Monday night, just so I didn't have to leave the game early. So he is. I think to get gold amongst a load of other huge football content creators for the charitable campaign was brilliant. And as Owen said, the work he puts in and the generosity of that man, I think is huge. So yeah,
well said.
Well done,
well
Mike.
Said, Steve. Steve, give a shout out for your Twitter and what else you do. You do some music as well.
Yeah, so at Big Steve with 2 E's, Big Steve Artist for some music stuff. I did do the original theme tune for Lee Judge's TV, and I was giving him some stick the other night because him and his mates, whoever does the channel, ditched it, didn't they? Ditched old Big Steve's little theme tune. Not that I'm bitter, or
There wasn't enough. There wasn't enough rap in it, apparently. So there we go. Trev, they can find you outside Block 5, generally lying in a stupid drunken slumber. Isn't that about right?
That's me. Yeah, that's me. Well, Dave, listen. There's one more thing we spoke about it the other night, right? But just before we finish, about the way match-going fans have been treated, right, by the television companies. And since we spoke, I'm serious now, right? Since we spoke, they've released the December fixtures for television, right? And for a match-going fan like myself, in December, we've got 2nd of December, we've got Man United away, no train zone. 6th of December, we've got Everton away, no train zone. 18th of December, we've got Leeds away, no train zone. And then there's one more that I can't remember, but I just like to say
they're on the screen now for you. So you got Manchester United on the 2nd of December, Thursday night. Monday night, Everton. The following end of the same weekend is also costing people a fortune. 3:00 kickoff, Southampton at the Emirates. Premier League game on a Wednesday night against West Ham. Okay, it's in London. It's London. You can't.
Right, yeah, that's sensible.
Yeah. Leeds 5:30 on a Saturday. I'll take that rather than a 12:30 if I'm honest. But
you can't get home, Fergus. The last train for London leaves Leeds. I think it's at about 8:15, and you can't get it if you stay to the end of the game. You can't get the train.
Trev, if you sort my ticket out for Leeds, we can get a hotel. Not me and you in the same room, but we can get a hotel and get on it.
Oh, okay.
That's it. I've got no ticket. and then we got
top to tail.
26th of December, we've got Norwich. There's no trains there or back. And the point is, Fergus, Sky TV.
New Year's Day, 12:30 kickoff in London, and the guys from Manchester City.
They've got no chance. And these TV companies, they blurt on about the environment and how they're going carbon neutral and zero and how they care about the fans. When we weren't there, you had, I'm not going to name it, but you had people on the telly bleating about how much they miss the fans and how much they need us. No chance, mate. And I know it's money, and I know the football clubs have taken the money, so they've got to get what they're given. But that still don't mean us fans should suffer like that. December is a nightmare month, an absolute nightmare month. And, the game against Everton, an hotel in Liverpool that's normally 40 quid on a Saturday night, it's 220 quid. Robbery. We're done. Right, I've had me moan now. Up the Arsenal.
Right, guys, as always, thanks very much. An hour on this podcast feels like an hour and 18 minutes, but it's been an hour. Thanks very much for being watching an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. I'm Fergus, joined by Trev, Owen and Steve. Thanks very much. Up the arse.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.